Welcome to Homegrown Harmony. It's just a mother and daughter sharing their story. And today we're going to be talking about depression, how that can affect moms who are homeschooling or just moms in general, but also being a parent to a kid that has depression or has depression-like symptoms, and how that can play a role in just life, but also in homeschooling, because that is kind of our focus here. And we're also going to be talking a lot about my mom's background and story with depression, how it's affected her life, and then I'm sure you've learned a lot about that sort of stuff too in like your schooling, and so yeah, take it away.
Okay, I think first it's important to understand my background with my depression. I feel like my depression goes all the way back to my teenage years, probably middle school, and I didn't really understand it at the time. I kept myself extremely busy all through middle school and high school. And looking at it now, I realize that was my coping mechanism, was to just kind of ignore anything and make myself as busy as possible, so there wasn't downtime to think about it. So then I got into college and I just kind of fell apart, for lack of a better term. I just stopped attending classes, would I don't know, just a lot of avoidance stuff, just not dealing well with any of it, and not knowing how to cope, because I hadn't really ever had any kind of guidance in using coping skills or how to effectively deal with emotions. And then I came home and it seemed okay, but I didn't go back to college after that first year. I stayed home and I worked, and then I ended up deciding to go on a mission. And on my mission, my depression got really bad because it was just a conglomerate of high expectations and a lot of insecurities around those high expectations, and then passive aggressiveness of certain individuals that I had to deal with on a very regular basis, and all that kind of stuff just made it snowball into a very large problem, that made it so that I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I couldn't function. I ended up coming home early from my mission because of that, and then I never really dealt with it when I got home. I ended up getting diagnosed with agitated anxious depression, so it was a combination of anxiety, depression, and the lifestyle that I was in the moment, but then it was never really dealt with in an appropriate manner when I got home. I thought I had dealt with it, but I didn't know how to deal with it, so it was kind of like a combination of pushing it under the rug, dealing with it the way I thought I could deal with it. I got on medication for a while, but it made me feel weird, and so then I got off of it. Anyway, and then it just continued throughout my life. I got married. I ended up having 3 kids in 4 years, and just a lot of other stressors, financial stressors, marriage stressors, all those kinds of things. But during that time period, I also worked in residential treatment for several years, and I learned a lot working in those places, because I would have to sit in group therapy, I'd have to go to AA meetings, which was an eye-opening experience, because I was from a very religious home. We didn't drink, did any of that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it wasn't like I was oblivious, because I did know people that had a different lifestyle than me, but it was really shocking for me. But it was a lot that I learned from those experiences, and I kind of gleaned a lot of my coping skills from the therapy that I saw and the training that was given to those kids. And so I used a lot of that as I continued, but it was still a long haul struggle for a very long time. And then after my son was born, my third child was born, I ended up with some really bad postpartum depression. And it was actually before that I was really depressed at one point, to the point that I wasn't functioning very well. And I had told my husband, her dad at the time, that I was really struggling. And he was at work at the time, and he had some friends come over and just sit with me and help me, because I was to the point where I was like, I can't even get myself up. and they did dishes, took care of kids, like made sure everything was clean in the house and stuff like that, and just really helped me out for a while. And then but then we went in, and I saw a doctor to try and get back on some medication, try something different, because I really didn't. Again, I was still kind of getting coping skills, but not as much as I should. And being a mom with young kids, I did not know how to function with young kids and how to be home all day long with toddlers and deal with it and cope with all of that. And I went and I got my blood drawn as a part of what they wanted to do for me to get medications and whatnot, and see if there was anything else going on. And I discovered that my iron was extremely low.
I was about to guess that. Did you have low iron?
I had extremely low iron, low B12, and low B6, which is not surprising, because when you look at like iron, B12, and B6, those are the things that give you energy, and help you be able to function on a regular basis. So when I started realizing, part of it is my health and how I was taking care of myself. So that kind of links into what I do now to take care of myself. Like, as soon as I'm like, oh man, my depression is really bad. Okay, have I been taking my vitamins, B12, B6, iron, even like vitamins, like vitamin C and all those types of things, and then like colloidal silver or the minerals and stuff like that to kind of up my my body's immunity and everything like that, because when you're sick you feel worse too.
Right. And I think we even need to go more in depth right here, because I feel like there's so many people, especially women out there, that could have those depressive symptoms but not know that. And so it's like, okay, we're talking about it here, but let's talk even more about, like, what are the steps to take? Like, where can you find, like, what are some good vitamins and minerals to take? Like, let's talk about that. Okay, so
for me, I've really stepped away from the typical, like, antidepressants as the method to dealing with it, because in one of my classes in college, I learned that a lot of people that claim they have depression, they have been able to deal with it by management of their physical health.
Right.
And actually, that was one of the things I wanted to share. There's a study that was done of 3 different ways that you can cope with it. You can cope with emotion-oriented strategies, avoidance strategies, or task-oriented strategies. Task-oriented is, I think, kind of what I did in middle school and high school. Was I was like all the time going, just basically just giving myself things to do to keep myself above water, you know. And avoidance is obviously, you know, just like, I'm not going to deal with it.
Yeah.
But when they showed those 3 versions, they said that the emotion-oriented tasks was the best way to cope with depression. And there's actually there's like a lot of different lists that go into those, but some of the major ones for that those specific things is meditation. And I shared with you that article about how meditation is akin to prayer, and being able to just take that silent time to get grounded, be closer to the spirit, be able to silence all the outside voices and everything like that are going on in your head, and be able to just get, and a lot of times I know when I first started to do a lot of meditation, I felt weird about it, because you're like, your brain just like starts thinking about all kinds of things all the time. But as I started to learn how to do focused meditation, where it was like you
focus on your breath.
Yeah, you focus on certain things, like tightening your muscles or doing some things like that. I really appreciated meditation a whole lot more, and I didn't learn those until I was in college the second time around. I didn't learn that until
like 35.
Yeah, we were
37.
like, you were like 9 years old.
Yeah.
At that point, so when I took that class, so I mean, Meditation is a big one of them. And then another one is journaling. I've always struggled with journaling, mostly because I hate the idea that somebody could open it and read it. I'm terrified that somebody's going to look at my thoughts. So I've never really been into journaling. But people do brain dump type journaling, where you can write down all of your emotions and burn them. Doing things like that really helps. Positive thinking. There was another study done where it was shown that people with depression, when they focused on using positive thoughts instead of negative thoughts, that there was a huge change in their depression, because they were able to focus on the positives. And sometimes it's not even like big positive things. It's little things like, when mine was really bad, I would be like, I got up and I got showered today. And I'd be like, I got showered.
That's a win.
That was a win. And then it would be like, I got up, I got showered, and I did the dishes this morning, and then and the other thing was being able to make small step goals. It was like, at first it was, I just need to make sure I get the dishes done and I get one small chore done every day. And then it would be, I'm going to get dishes done, a small chore done, and I'm going to do something else, and when you guys were little, it was, for you guys, it was, I'm going to read a book with them, and I'm going to do a task with them. Anyway, so those types of things are things that help with your emotions, the positive energy, the positive thoughts, and positive movement forward. It doesn't need to be huge steps. It can be very small steps. And reframing that goes along with the positive, like reframe how you look at those positive things. It doesn't need to be, I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, it can be, I walked 1,000 steps today, Yeah. And for some people, that's a big deal, because, many of us are very stagnant. So being able to get steps in can be a big deal too. I tried to do 10,000 steps at one point, and I was like, this is nuts. I'd be walking for like 3 hours.
I try to do it too. It's crazy.
Unless you're waiting tables, which I used to do, and I used to get those steps. But
yes,
anyway.
Absolutely. When I worked at the barbecue restaurant, I would get my steps in when I worked like an 8-hour shift.
Yeah, but it was an 8-hour shift.
Right, exactly. That's the only time I'd get my steps in, like that in a week.
Yeah, and like even when I do cardio workouts, like and long cardio workouts, not small ones, I still don't get as many steps as that. So being able to like recognize that some things are hard to do, and being able to get to that is an accomplishment. Being able to build up to that,
especially when we live in a world where like we always see like people who do get 10,000 steps or run a mile every day, and I'm like, I don't know. Like there was a small plan in my life for about like maybe 2 weeks a couple years ago where I was like, okay, I'm gonna run like half a mile every day. And then I was like, I don't like this.
I hate running. And I'm totally okay with saying that.
Right, because we have other ways that we like to work out. I dance and do weights and yoga, and she does cardio and weights and stuff. So like we have so many other ways that we work out that isn't just running, which we cannot stand.
Yeah, and it can change too.
Yes, absolutely.
I used to love to do Zumba like all the time.
Yes, I used to do it with you.
Yeah, but now I've kind of changed into like my mentality has been I do need to do weights.
Yes.
And I've found people the videos that I do that I enjoy, and I do those ones because I like the way they talk and the way they interact with me and stuff, or on the video. Yeah. Because it's not, you can do it. Sometimes it's, this sucks, and I'm sorry.
Keep going, because
they keep going. Great. And I try to make it in a time span where I'm not at the end going, why am I still doing this? It's usually short enough that I'm not hating it at the end. Right. So anyway. So,
which is another thing, is it doesn't have to be long. I only usually work out for like 20 minutes, and you do what, like 30, I think?
Yeah, 30. I used to do a lot longer, but
right. But then it's like, then you are really like, why am I doing this? It's like, just do less time and just do a little bit more in that time.
Well, and a lot of studies say that a healthy amount of exercise in a week is about 150 hours of good cardio and all that kind of stuff. And so that's, not even 2.5 hours in a week. So if you're splitting that up over 4 or 5, 6 days, depending on how you like to do it, some days I do more weight training, and then I will do another day where it's more cardio type of stuff. And so I try to like balance it out so that my body can rest in an appropriate manner when it needs to. And that's another one of the things on the list of emotion oriented is exercise, because exercise ups your endorphins and it helps. And I know I used to be the person that was like, oh no, this is not raising my endorphins. I hate this. There's nothing I love about doing this. There's nothing. But that was a lot of because I hadn't built up the endurance for it. I told you a couple weeks ago. So I went back and did a Jillian Michaels workout. That was like the very first like video workout I had done, like post kids, babies, all that kind of stuff. Brigham was like 5 when I did this. He's 11 now, so
6 years ago.
6 years ago. He was 4 actually, so it's been 7 years. But I did that same workout, and when I did it the first time, I couldn't even do it with 1 pound weights. I was huffing it at the end, and I think I used 6-ounce tomato paste cans as my weights. It was so bad. It was so bad. But I went back and I did it like probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I did it with like 9-pound weights and did the whole thing, and I was like, oh no, I was like, wow. And even considering like I had to take quite a long break because my shoulder's been giving me problems. So even after taking a long break from doing some harder workouts, I was still able to do that at a higher level. And I've had a baby since then. Anyway.
Which is another thing, because, like, Jillian Michaels, I love her, but she works out all the time, so she makes it look so easy to do those 45-minute workouts and not break a sweat. And it's, like, that's not how, like, 95% of the population is. And so, like, that's part of the thing that plays a role in depression is that comparison of, like, oh, well, she can do this, so, like, I should be able to do it, too. And it's kind of like, well, no, because she's been doing this as her career for, like, 10, 15 years?
Well, that's when you learn how to modify and learn how...
Right,
when
exactly.
you need to stop, you take a break, you know? And I try to focus more on, okay, where's my heart rate? My heart rate is high. I should not continue to...
Yes.
I don't need to push myself to the point that I'm, like, laying on the floor huffing it and not being able to function anymore.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I need to make sure that I can tell myself, I'm doing my best right now, you know? And I even still, like, now when I try to do, like, burpees, I'm like...
I can't say any burpees.
I will do the modified burpees and stuff like that because I can't do... And, like, sometimes I can't do jumping jacks because my hips hurt, my knees hurt, my body hurts, my shoulder hurts, like, everything. So I'm like, we're going to do the tap my foot out to the side jacks because that's all I got right now, you know? And, and being able to tell myself that that's okay is extremely important in getting myself to be able to work out. If I'm expecting to work at a Jillian Michaels level, it's not going to happen because I'm not there.
And who is there?
Yeah,
like Jillian Michaels. That's
3% of the population. Actually.
Yeah,
so you know.
Seriously.
Anyway, so those are a lot of the types of self-care things that, like, over a span of a very long time, I have had to teach myself to help me get through my mental health issues. Now, as far as homeschooling with mental health issues, that's like I hear so many times, oh, I can't homeschool because I can't deal with it. There's no way I could, like, I've got to have me time. I've got to, you know, all those types of things to say I can't do it because of me. I have always dealt with depression. That's not ever been, it hasn't ever changed. It doesn't look like it maybe now today, but I still deal with it. I still have to, like, go, okay, I'm having a hard time right now. What am I not doing? What do I need to change?
What vitamins do I need to add into my life?
My sleep. I need to make sure that I'm getting a good night's sleep. I need to make sure that my nutrition is right. I need to make sure that I'm taking care of my vitamins, exercising, doing meditation and prayer type stuff, and anything else. Like my communication with my family members. Like if I'm frustrated with somebody, I need to communicate with them so that it doesn't make me miserable continually. I've got to take care of that relationship so that it doesn't fester. So anyway, so as a homeschool mom, some things that I've really learned is I have to set boundaries with myself and with my kids. I need to make sure that I say for our day, we don't have a time frame exactly, because I can't live up to that expectation, and I know that I can't. That's too much for me, and it will make me spiral. So instead, I set out, this is the expectations for the day, and this is what we need to get done today. And for a very long time, what we did is we got up when we were fully rested. We'd have breakfast, and then it was, you need to get ready for the day, and you need to get your chore done and your schoolwork done. And then it was, and it wasn't necessarily need to do it at this specific time. It was, it just needs to get done before this time, and then you can have your tablets and stuff after that point. And it was 4 o'clock for a long time. It was at 4, and then for a little while it was at 3. So it kind of differed a little bit. But that kind of gave us some leeway to play with if we went somewhere during the day or whatever. And then at that, for a long portion of that time, I was going to school. So usually the morning was doing their schoolwork and getting things done with them. And then we would do lunch. And then in the afternoon, I would say, okay, guys, I'm going in my room. Leave me alone. I need to get my schoolwork done. That doesn't mean you left me alone. But there were a lot of days that it was a struggle to not be somebody wasn't knocking at my door constantly. But I would say, I need to go in my room. I need to get my schoolwork done. And that was their free time to do other things.
Yeah, we played games. Like, I think we talked about it in our first episode of, like, there's one time where we literally, like, took a box and created an ATM.
Yeah.
And so I remember sitting inside the box, and, like, my brothers would, like do a little hole, would, like, put in, like, cash or something. And it was just, like, this whole thing. I remember just sitting on the couch inside a box, and I was the ATM. Yeah, we found ways to entertain ourselves, for sure.
Yeah. And I really, and also setting that boundary was extremely important. And communicating with them that I needed to have time to have to myself. And there were days that, like, I had to do video Zoom meetings. And one of those times I was like, I cannot be interrupted. And I went out there and I, like, made a joke about it and, like said some stupid comments about, like, if he's throwing things at you and leaving a sock on your head, are you going to come and bug me? And I was like, no, you're not. And they, like, laughed hysterically. They thought it was the funniest thing. But because I made it silly and ridiculous, they remember that I told them that they cannot come and bug me. Yes. So I was left alone for, like, a couple of hours.
Yeah, well, so, and that actually reminds me, in theater, we had, like, this, like, all of the second act, like, almost all of our act 2 was, like, you had to, like, stay on stage and, like, freeze. Like, we would come back to life every now and then, but, like, there were very long periods of time there would be frozen for 3 songs. And my director was like, you guys have to stop moving. You cannot move anything. And he was like, I don't care if your hair is on fire. You do not unfreeze. And we all, like, cracked up. But, like, we remembered it, and it wasn't an issue. He didn't have to change it. We were able to do it for all of our performances. Yeah. So. Anyway,
so really setting boundaries with your kids is, like, the biggest thing. For me, at least. It was, like, when I was working out, like, don't bug me while I'm working out because I want to get it done.
We would always just sit on the couch and just watch her.
They would cheer me on usually.
Yes,
or sing the songs.
Yes, I vividly remember we would always play Love Shack, and I would just sit there and be singing Love Shack in our, like, big old white chair that had, like, this nasty pattern and, like, was so outdated. And she'd be working out in the living room with our nasty carpet. Like, I just remember sitting there and singing Love Shack.
It was our cheap apartment that, you know.
Yep. Post-divorce. Yeah.
Paid my rent and got it taken care of, but it worked.
Yeah.
Anyway, so making sure that you... Let me close out because it'll keep making noises at me otherwise. Making sure you set boundaries. Also, like, how you set boundaries is extremely important because... when I'm negative in setting my boundaries, my kids are going to be negative. And they're going to have a harder time living up to those boundaries. If they feel like they're being forced into it, they're going to struggle. And if they feel like they're going to be miserable in it, they're going to struggle. Whereas if I say, hey, this is what we're going to do today, and I try to just say it in a very basic way. Not overly angry, like, you have to do it this way. You know, this is what needs to get done today. This is what I expect out of you. This is what I need to get done today. and whatnot. And sometimes it was, we didn't have a whole lot going on. And then I'd say, this is what we're going to do. And sometimes it's a lot of things. But like today, you know, I was gone this morning and I texted Ruth and I was like, I need the dishwasher unloaded. And I came home and the dishwasher was unloaded. Look at that.
And then I just got done loading like an hour ago.
Yeah.
So I was like, it's getting done and I'm going to load.
Yeah. But it takes repetition and a lot of like holding to expectations and not yelling about it, not getting angry about it because that doesn't fix anything. But being able to hold the boundaries. You know, if you don't unload the dishwasher when I've told you to, you're gonna unload the dishwasher and load the dishwasher tomorrow. You know, or
which has happened. I think that happened like last week with Brig.
Yeah, it did. Or, you know, if you're not unloading the dishwasher because you're watching your tablet and you're distracted, you're not gonna watch your tablet.
Which basically also happened last week. He didn't do the dishes because he was watching his tablet, so you made him unload and load.
Yeah. So like, dude, I told you, do it. So just having like the consequence equal to what the crime was.
The crime.
Yeah.
You didn't unload.
Dun dun dun. So making sure that it's realistic expectations and realistic consequences to what you're doing. But all of that goes back to my mental health. If I have healthy boundaries with my kids and healthy communication with my kids, my mental health is going to be much better. And I found that when my mental health is bad, I'm usually crankier. That's usually when I do start getting mad and frustrated, and then I have to like go back and be like, whoa, things need to change. So yeah, that's the biggest thing. Also, like making sure that I take time for me. Now, like I took a long break from school, but now I'm back in school. I still have to make sure that I take time for me outside. Like I have to take time for my school. I have to take time for my kids. I have to take time for my marriage and my house and everything else. I still have to be like, I'm going to sit down and read a book because I want to read a book. And some people don't find this as a coping thing, but when I can do my gardening, I go out and I get in my garden. Sometimes it's coping, sometimes it's not, depending on the day and what I have to do. And sometimes I get frustrated with I just throw my hands up in the air and say no more. But that's when I go, okay, that's my limit. Like, just making sure we understand those things. So, I do want to encourage people that have been on the fence about homeschooling, and that's one of the reasons not to really consider looking at how they can change their lifestyle for themselves and for their kids so that they can do what they feel is best, and get over that hurdle for their family, because I know there's a lot of people out there that want to homeschool but they're too afraid to.
Yeah.
So
I also just want to point out, I feel like everything you've talked about, it's not like you've never like this what we consider self-care in our society of like bubble baths and all these things. Like, you never did that. Like, I've never seen you do that growing up. It's because I feel like, and the same thing with like medicine type thing is medicine and self-care and those type of things are band-aids. You've always been better about finding the root cause of like, okay, well, communication. If I'm not communicating well with my family, that's a stressor that's causing an issue. And so sometimes it's not about, oh, I have to take an hour to like, I mean, yes, to take time for you, but like also doesn't need to be like a bath or anything like extravagant. A lot of times it's just getting to the root cause of what is causing that issue, and what's what I'm looking for?
Resolve it.
Yeah, or addressing it.
Yeah,
is what I was like looking for.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that like goes to show that like the whole concept of ignoring doesn't solve it. So like, yeah, the bubble bath is great. You can put a pause on life if you want and go take a bubble bath, but you're still going to end up with that problem when you leave the bathroom.
Absolutely.
So making sure that like if you're frustrated with your kids, you sit down and say, okay, this is the problem that we had. This needs to be a solution. We need to figure out a solution.
Yes.
And then we need to make sure it doesn't happen again. This is going to be the consequence in the future, kind of stuff. Right. And working on that together to make it happen.
And sometimes when you're really in that emotion of that frustration, it can help to go take a bath. and then come back to it.
Yeah.
But it's the reason behind why you're taking the bath. Like, if it's like, oh, it's self-care, or is it, okay, I'm going to take a pause, I'm going to take a minute, and then you can go back to that.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to what you said a second ago, for me, the past months have been really hard, and I found that, like, yes, like, I could take, like, a candlelit, like, shower or whatever. Like, I did that a couple nights of, I turned on the candles and I lit the candles. And I took a nice long shower, and that was great, but that didn't solve my problem. And I realized towards the end of all of this, it was actually kind of drove me crazy that it took me until, like, it was almost, the thing that was really stressing out was over to realize the problem. But I had a lack of sleep, major lack of sleep. My nutrition was actually fine, but I think I had low iron, and I was not taking any vitamins or minerals. I wasn't doing meditation, and I wasn't working out. And so the working out and the lack of meditation and the lack of sleep, if I had fixed all of those things, everything would have been so much better. And so it was kind of interesting because I remember just kind of being in this place of like, well, why is this happening? Like, why am I struggling? Like, I feel like I understood what was wrong. I just didn't understand why entirely. And so I was like, okay, well, I know the way I'm feeling, but what can I do? And it took me longer than I liked to realize that it was all of those things.
Yeah.
And so the biggest thing, like, if you are struggling with depression, or you know someone, or you have a kid that's struggling with depression, look at sleep, look at food, look at vitamins and minerals. Definitely recommend iron, getting, like, just, like, a daily woman's pill, like what we take, with, like, iron, vitamin C, B6, B12. I don't actually currently take B6 and B12 because it keeps me up at night. So maybe, like, half of one of those pills and then, like, rotate or something, because that's, like, it keeps me up at night.
Those the daily vitamin, women's vitamins,
yes,
has some.
Yes, and that's the thing, is the dosage of it too. Like, the B6, B12 pills that we have are, like, a higher dosage, whereas, like, the daily women's vitamin has less of it, and so that works better. Also, definitely, like, minerals. We take what's
it's a
the minerals?
colloidal silver.
Yeah.
It's a liquid mineral, and yeah, we do that.
Yeah. So definitely look at that. Look at exercising, like, and like we've talked about, like, it doesn't have to be running a mile every day. Like, experiment, find what works for you. Like, see if there's a local yoga class. Like, I love taking classes. I'm not able to do it regularly just because of my lifestyle, so I'm able to do some of that at home. I've learned how to do some yoga stuff at home. So just experiment with that. But definitely look at those three things. So nutrition, pills, not pills, but, like, vitamins and minerals, sleep, and exercise. I feel like are the main four.
Yeah.
And then those I find are, like, the easiest things to address. The other really big thing that plays a big part is, like, emotional stuff. That's harder to address, though. Like, if you constantly have the stressor of, like, maybe a sibling or a parent or a child or something like that, it's, like, constantly, like, well, you can't just remove that from your life.
Yeah.
You can add more sleep. You can fix your nutrition. That's a lot harder. But starting with that is definitely a good place to start, I feel like.
Also, like, one way you can help with people in your life is learning how to communicate with them.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like a lot of people go into a communication with somebody on the defense already, or on the offense, whichever one you want to look at it. John Gottman talks about that as one of his communications, like, and he says that women are really bad about doing it, where they go in hot and already, like, ready to argue.
I do it all the time.
You know, and so that already creates the environment for an argument. And so it's much better. Like, I know for me, when I know that I need to talk to somebody, I, like, almost create the dialogue in my head beforehand. And I ask myself, okay, if I were to hear that from somebody else, how would I react? And like, I try to take out negative words, like if I'm like,
you.
Yeah, well,
take out you,
but also so you didn't take out this stupid trash. Just saying stupid in there creates that negative energy. So instead of saying, hey, the trash didn't get taken out, can you please take it out?
Yeah. You removed the stupid and the you.
Yeah.
And removing the you takes away.
Yeah. Well, and then saying like please and like, you know, there's a lot of things that you can do to just create the change. And I know it gets super frustrating to repeat yourself with your kids. That's the other thing, is making sure that they hear you. That is like my number one argument with people is, but did they actually
hear you? Which could be a whole episode on itself, like all of this
we are going to
stuff.
do that.
Oh, absolutely.
But anyway, so we could go into all kinds of stuff.
But also another thought I had of like, when you do address those things of like sleep and nutrition and exercising and all that stuff, the communication and the emotional stuff will also get better. Because I know for me, if I haven't eaten, I get really hangry, and then I eat and I'm like, oh wow, I was a total pill. I'm sorry guys, that was not me. But it's like when I'm in that state, it's a million times harder for me to use the skills that I have to communicate effectively, whereas when I'm not hungry. And so I'm like, but when you address that issue, then the other thing is better. So that's why it's like, yes, usually like the emotional stuff is like the key like issue to everything, but addressing these other things can also help with that, which will make this easier to address. So
I also think you've learned, especially in like probably the last year, that it's not just about eating, it's about what you eat.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because you'll be like, oh no, I need to have like protein and stuff that fills me up and like makes me like have energy, because I cannot do with just like pancakes for breakfast.
I've actually gotten really good about that, and I'm really proud of myself because I'm really good about eating well, actually. And that's one of the things that I had to go about the past couple of months. Sleep and exercising, those went out the window. But nutrition is one that I was good at. It's actually really interesting because a couple weeks ago, I went and did the service project, and I was outside and I was doing stuff with leaves, and it was all morning. And by the time we went to go get lunch or whatever, I was really hungry. And we were waiting like for lunch. We were trying to figure out what our plans were, and there was like this kind of like, I think it was like a little cake, but not really like a cake. You know, like those like loaf cake things. I was like a pumpkin cake
bread
thingy. Yeah, pumpkin like bread type thing. So it wasn't like a treat, but it also wasn't filling. And so my dad was like, hey, do you want one? And I was like, maybe later. I don't want to be that the first thing I eat. I'd rather have something filled with protein and then come back and eat that, just because I know that like this is gonna tell my body, oh, now you don't need to eat, and then I won't have those as many hungry like cues when I do have that protein filled food. But then also I know like I remember seeing something like this doctor or whatever, and she was like in the mornings, if one of the first things that you eat is like something filled with sugar, that's gonna like go straight to your bloodstream. Whereas if you have something already in your stomach to help absorb that, it won't be as bad. And so I that's another thing, is I really try to like make sure the first thing in my stomach is protein, and then if I want like a little treat, whatever, like that's not a big deal. But I definitely try to make sure that in any case where I'm really hungry, it's let's fill myself up with protein and like fruit and vegetables first, and then if we want to treat after, that's great. So yeah, I'm really proud of myself for that, actually. Nutrition has been like my thing. I was talking with a friend, and she was like, I've been really bad about eating, which is funny because it's like my friend who like is super fit. She's really good about exercising, and like her whole family like is really good about this. Like we do dance together and stuff. And I was like, actually, like food is one of my really good things. Like we just come from a party, so I was like, obviously, like I ate a little bit more than I normally would have, but and don't go to parties a lot. Like maybe 2 or 3 times a month, I like eat a little bit extra. But yeah, so anyway, I was just like, that is my one thing that I'm good at. So, and I think in any case, find the one thing you're good at. You know, maybe you're terrible at getting good sleep. Maybe you get 2 hours of sleep, but maybe you're good about taking your vitamins, or maybe you're good about, I don't know, whatever it is. Like just find your win and celebrate that. So,
and then build on it.
Yeah. And then real quick, let's just talk for just a minute, because we're already at 38 minutes. Just about, I feel like we've already kind of addressed this, but let's just identify and like address the flip-flopped reverse of this, of like the parent with a child with depression, because we've already talked about the tools.
Okay, so I think that the hardest thing for some parents is having empathy. Because it's easy to just say, go and do this and go and do that, and you know, but it's a lot different when you have a kid that's really struggling to do those things. Being able to use empathetic phrases and help them. Like, there are times where I have to say, my kid is having a hard time right now. I need to not be another thing that's burdening them. Like, when you were stressed out, you had a lot going on the last 2 months, and there was a lot of times I was like, we're gonna let that slide because it's not going to help her. It's gonna make it harder for her. You know, like, she did not do chores a lot the last 2 months.
I did not. I think I did dishes like twice in the past 2 months.
But I also tried to be empathetic too. She's got a lot on her plate, and
well, and then it was really interesting because, like, as soon as it was done, I think, like, 2 days after theater ended and stuff, I did, like, 10 chores in one night. So it's, like, that's part of the thing is, like, yeah, I miss chores, but then I have days where I clean half the house. So it's, like, just considering those things. And not every kid is like that, obviously.
And your room isn't always going to be clean.
Oh, no.
I also, that's the other thing, I had to remind myself, my room was not clean when I was a teenager.
It was funny because you wanted me to text grandma the other day and show her my room and be like mother, like daughter.
My mom had a picture of, like, my drawers open with, like, clothes draped over. My room's not clean now, so, like.
Yeah, no, literally, I think last night I had 2 drawers open, and then I had, like, a pile of stuff in my room. I have shoes everywhere. I had, like, my clothes that I took off from church yesterday because I had to, like, get out of my skirt and put on pants to go to a meeting. Yeah. And so, like, yeah, there was a skirt.
Anyway, so the other thing is, like, gently teaching your kid, like, in an appropriate context. Like, when your kid is really, like, if they're not getting out of bed, that's not the time to be like, well, you need to be doing this, and you should be doing this, and you should be doing this to take care of yourself. You know, maybe, like, when they're up, and maybe they're sitting at the kitchen table having something for breakfast, you can just say, hey, what can I do to help you figure out this, you know? And just say, what is the problem, and how can we address it?
And I definitely think, like, the tools we already talked about of, like, the sleep and the exercise, nutrition, all those things, just ask and be like, how did you sleep last night?
Yeah.
When was the last time you worked out? Like, do you want to work out with me? Do you want to go on a walk with me? Do you not want me to go on a walk with me? Because I have a relationship with my mother, but that's not the case for everyone. And just, like, it's like, oh, hey, do you want me to get you some vitamins and minerals to go with your breakfast? Like, you can just take, like, these 4 pills and, like, 1 sip of water. That could take you 2 seconds. And then offering to get that for them. So it's, like, kind of asking these questions of, like, okay, well, how's your sleep? How can I help you sleep better? So, like, I think starting with those questions of, well, where are you? And then it's like, okay, now how can I help you get further?
Yeah. And the hardest part is, like, a lot of people when they're in depression, when they have depression, they hear, well, I'm not doing it right, and I'm not doing it enough. Like, even when you're trying to be positive and helpful and empathetic, a lot of times they don't see it that way. Yeah. Where, like, if you're saying, well, why don't we have you take medication or your vitamins? And then they in their head are thinking, I didn't take my vitamins. Now I'm a horrible person because I'm not taking care of myself, you know? So just, like, if there's a response to something, being able to back away and to say it's not that big of a deal, we can figure it out. Yeah. But that's why I say the first step is, what can I do to help you? Because then that puts it in their court to decide what they need to do. And you can even just say, would you like to have somebody else talk to you, or would you like other information? But usually my biggest thing is I try to talk to my kids when I know they're in a good spot. Yeah. With everything, chores, all that kind of stuff. Sometimes, obviously, I don't do it all the time. I'm not great, and I'm not always perfect at it. But, like, for example, the sink was not getting cleaned after people did the dishes, and it was driving me nuts because I was the only one taking out the little mesh things to, like, because we don't have a disposal, so we get all the crap from the dishes. And so I was like, okay, guys, I just did dishes. This is what the sink should look like after you're done. Yeah. And I did it at a time when they were both in a good mood. Nobody was going to be like, you know? Yeah. But making sure that they're in a place where they can take the feedback. Absolutely. No matter what the case is. But when they're, depression is the same way. Like, if you have a kid that's in bed all the time and struggling, wait until they're up and doing something else, and then say, hey, I noticed you've been in your bed a lot. What can I do to help you? Like, what do we need to do? Do we need to maybe get your blood checked, make sure you're not over, like, if there's something wrong that's making you extremely tired?
Low iron makes
Yeah,
It can cause so many sleep issues and
exactly.
tiredness.
So just making sure that they're in a place where they can give you feedback that's actually going to be effective, because a lot of times if you're in a negative place, it's not going to be helpful.
Well, I will say with that dishes thing, this morning an hour ago I did dishes and I made sure I wiped down the sink, because it was in my head of, oh, okay, I need to check it. Which honestly, sometimes I wasn't doing it purposely, I just didn't think about it.
Yeah.
I used to be really good about doing the mesh things, and then I just forgot this a couple times in a row, and so when she reminded me that, I'm like, oh, okay, I can do that, and then today I did it. And
I didn't do it in a negative way.
Absolutely not.
So it wasn't like you weren't being spiteful or anything. You were just like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I literally was just like, I did the last piece of dish, and I was like, oh, okay, let me clean the sink, and let me do that, and okay, there we go. It just having that in my head. And
Brigham yesterday, when he was doing the dishes, he was like, okay, now how do I do this? I want to make sure I do it right.
Right, because that's the thing is, you didn't show us. You just said this is the final result. So I know how to make that final result, and Bray doesn't, and so that's where we just differ as siblings of where we are, because we're 4 years apart, and so
developmentally.
Right, places. When I was 11, I would have had to ask you the same thing of Mom, how do I do this?
Yeah.
But now I'm like, oh, I know how to do this, and so that's another thing is understanding where each child is at.
Yeah, developmentally. I could go on a rampage about that.
Yeah. So anyway, before we open that can of worms, anything else we need to talk about? Because we're at 45 minutes, and that's the goal.
Way longer than we wanted to do.
It's okay, because I feel like we knew that this was going to be a whole can of worms that we were going to open with this depression stuff.
Yep. But I hopefully it helps somebody, encourages somebody to look at some things for themselves and their kids that might help them in the future.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. We'll see you guys next week.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.